Mr. Grothman, for 30 minutes.
We're going to take about a week and a half off now as we go back to our districts, meet our constituents, do our factory tours. But I think prior to leaving, it's important one more time to address what I think is the most significant issue that this Congress and next Congress, and that this president and the next president is going to have to deal with. Because how we address this issue will determine whether America fundamentally changes or not. And that issue is immigration. We see it on the TV every night, the obnoxiousness going on in a church in Minneapolis, the horror and unfortunate death of a woman who was protesting, demonstrations all around the country. So let's, first of all, define the current situation. Right now in America, every year, about 800,000 people are naturalized. We don't talk about that enough. We spend all the time talking about people who are sneaking in this country. We don't talk about the fact that 500,000 people every year become new citizens. In addition to that, about 800,000 new citizens, 500,000 about people come here on work visas, and another 500,000 come here on student visas. And people being what they are, many of these people on visas stay in the United States anyway. In addition to that, the United States is one of the few countries in the world in which we have birthright citizenship, in which we get new citizens just because, say, a woman from China flies into San Diego, has a child, and comes back. The way we're interpreting the law right now, which of course is wrong, but the way we're interpreting it is that that child becomes a U.S. citizen. When you look at all the ways you can become citizens, it's not surprising that today over 15% of the people in the United States of America were born abroad. That's an all-time high. So as we analyze what we have to do on this situation, we ought to remember that if we do nothing, we are already at an all-time high in the number of people who are in the United States who were not born here. As far as the over 800,000 naturalized, that's about 4 times what it was when I was a child in the 60s. So again, we have nobody to apologize to as we're not letting people in the country. 4 times as many people as being let in the country as when I was a child. Then we just got done with a president, Joe Biden, and of course we don't keep track of the exact numbers, but he was allowing about 8 to 10 million people, in addition to all these other people, 8 to 10 million people being allowed in the country crossing our southern border illegally. So, what do we do about this situation as we're we're being flooded with people from other countries? First of all, we have to worry that the people coming here are not what John Adams said should be required to come here. They are not necessarily a moral and religious people. They may not respect our Constitution. When they eventually participate in our elections, will they vote for the limited government that our forefathers feel we need? A limited government that is required. You know, most countries built on elections wind up collapsing. And they collapse because people go to the polls and just say, what can my government do for me? I'll quote John Kennedy here as far as what he felt we needed in this country. He said, ask not what our country will do for you, but what you can do for our country. And that's the type of people we need at the polling booth. Unfortunately, over time, and I'm including corporate welfare on this as much as anything, we have more and more citizens when they vote saying, what'll you give me? Are you going to give me more food? Are you going to give me free medical care? Are you going to give me free daycare? In other words, what they do is they want the government to give them more money that they didn't earn on their own. That would be the end of America if these are the type of immigrants we are getting in. I also want to point out, when we look at the people coming here, some of our inflammatory people talk about racism. I hate it when they talk about racism, but I do want to point out that now when you look at people who are naturalized who come in here, I want to rattle off the 10 most common countries that citizens become naturalized from. 1, Mexico; 2, India; 3, Philippines; 4, Dominican Republic; 5, Cuba; 6, Vietnam; 7, China; 8, El Salvador; 9, Jamaica; 10, Colombia. You notice anything about those 10 countries? Not one of those countries are sending us immigrants who are primarily European in nature. I should maybe qualify that. For whatever reason, the diversity bureaucrats have decided to tell us that people, say, from Cuba or the Dominican Republic are not European. I've always felt it was odd the way they define this. You can have a family that moves here from Spain to Cuba, hangs around Cuba for 80 years. They come to the United States, and they are not considered primarily European, even though their ancestry is in Europe. But in any event, the way we consider things now, none of the top 10 are primarily European. So as far as people saying we have this horrible racist country, I think it would be odd for a racist country to let the 10 most common nationalities to come here all what our left-wing friends would call people of color. In any event, we have to ask ourselves, how do we handle this huge influx of people coming to the country? If people come here and lie and say they're coming here for asylum, it seems to me the only alternative is to remove them, or we have no immigration law, right? If the word gets out that you come to the United States, and as long as you don't break a law, as long as you're not an armed robber, as long as you're not a drug dealer, you can stay here forever, everybody will come here. That's like having no immigration law at all. But in any event, right now, we have the bizarre situation in which people are deciding we don't have to enforce our current immigration laws. We have people like I'm from Wisconsin, the governor of Illinois, the governor of Minnesota, in essence saying, we do not want ICE in our states. Same thing with the ridiculous mayor of Minnesota. Well, what would happen if the word got out that if you come illegally into the United States, all you have to do is find your way into Illinois or Minnesota or perhaps New York or California, and the immigration laws will not be enforced? I'll tell you what had happened. What had happened is, in a given period of time, I think we would find ourselves, I'm sure it would be easy, to find 100 million Chinese who would come here, 100 million people from India could come here, 100 million people from Africa would come here. America would permanently change. They would change very quickly if we respected the preposterous positions of the governor of Minnesota. In order to preserve our country, we have to limit the number of new citizens at 800,000 or maybe even less. It's scary that we have so many citizens so blind they can't see that we're losing our country. But if we allow unlimited immigration in the country, that's exactly what would happen. I should also point out that things are different than they were 60 years ago. When I was a child and they showed pictures of countries abroad, you would see starving children starving children. You look at their stomachs. Nowadays, the amount of poverty in the third world is a fraction of what it used to be. in some of the poorer countries of the world, we have the same problem as we do with the poor of this country. They're obese. Okay? It amazes me sometimes when you look at the TV and they're showing other countries around the globe how they have high-rise buildings in the background. I'm sure they're not as wealthy as, say, New York City, but they clearly are not poor as we thought of poor 60 years ago. These people frequently have more than enough money. So the question is, what to do? And that's why I think it's the biggest problem we have in America. If people like the governor of Minnesota or the governor of Illinois or the governor of California get their way, the America that we are used to is going to disappear. And it will be replaced by people who may not be protecting our country or keeping the current law or the current constitution or the attitude of less government going. We are almost certainly going to get people who turn America into the countries they came from, countries in which are socialism, in which you have socialists, countries at which elections become contests of who are you going to give to more. America will become not only poorer, but America will become much less free. So we must enforce our immigration laws. It's going to be messy in some cases, particularly because we have horrible mayors and horrible governors who want to ignore our laws. They want to fundamentally change America. But our president, whoever that president is, has to have the courage and the moral steel to stand up to these people and remove people who don't belong here. And anybody who feels guilty about that, again, I remind you, 800,000 people a year, almost all what liberals would refer to as people of color, are coming here already. We have nothing to apologize for if we hold the number of people here to those numbers. There's some people who feel that we need more people here for our farms, more people here for our hotels, more people here for our factories. If that is true, Congress can expand the number of work visas are available. But it doesn't mean we open up the floodgates of the southern border and whoever can come here should be able to come here. Part of the problem as well, in addition to bad mayors and bad governors, is bad clergy. I think that they are apparently not familiar with what is in the Bible as far as respecting the law. And every country around the world has immigration laws. They have laws that have to be respected. Unfortunately, we have some clergy who I guess were bored preaching about the gospel, bored preaching about God, and they've decided to adopt the left-wing orthodoxies of let everybody come here. And they, of course, have a lot to answer to as well. But I challenge Americans at the polls when you look and see what issues your congressmen or even more, your mayors or governors are running on. Are you going to vote for people who are going to keep our America great? Not people who are going to say no immigrants whatsoever, like I said, naturalizing 800,000 a year. But are you going to elect people who are not going to be foolish people who let an unlimited number of people come here? Because if we do that, America, the America that we grew up in, is going to be gone for our children. It's going to be gone for our grandchildren. In any event, that is, I think, the most important issue today, because if we don't win on that issue, our country is done. Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time.